Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is episode number 112 of The Inner Lenses, conversations about things that you need to spend more time thinking about. Normal conversationalists, I say normal in the loosest sense of the term, Brett, Gaby, Erika, and we've got a special guest and friend Jerry with us today as well. So you will be able to find all of our contact details in comments and things as we upload the videos. Today, we are going to talk about overwhelm and burnout. And this is sort of prompted by Erika being frustrated with me. And I said, I don't know if maybe my recovery from burnout has not been as good as I thought it was, because I just have this fuck that and I'm going down to the lock kind of mentality and attitude. And we sort of came to the conclusion that actually the best recovery metric from burnout is the number of times in a day that you can comfortably say, fuck this, fuck that, fuck them, fuck you, and walk away from whatever given situation you happen to be in. So we're going to get into that. And Brett just made a really excellent point that sometimes by not really speaking our minds, we don't bring into conversation things that would help other people as well. So that's it. The floor is open. What have you got, conversationalists?
Well, funny enough, the first thing which popped into my mind when you said that is it a conversation about burnout or is it a conversation about boundaries? Or do we suffer from overwhelm and consequently burnout because we have no boundaries? We say yes to everything and everything gets too much. So, by the way, to learn to say no, or in a less polite way, fuck off. Maybe this is what brings the overwhelm down, because we're actually not taking everything and anything on and make it our own.
And the first thing that popped to my mind was, how many times do any of us, and I'll say for me, do we say, I don't give a fuck, and actually really mean that? Like, do you really not give a fuck? Or are you angry that you actually do give a fuck, but don't want to give a fuck? And now it's your fuck to give. Like, what? I don't want this, right? But we say it, but I don't know how many times we actually mean it when we say that.
Well, I know for you personally, you say, I'm done with this shit, fuck it, a lot, but then you care too much. So there's an overgiving element, which might well fit with what Gaby just mentioned about boundaries. And yet you also, I'm speaking directly to you here, Erika, you also
No kidding.
are really,
You're kidding.
really fired up about boundaries and making sure that when some of that frustration that comes up, you always say, or words to the effect of, when you get an emotion, normally it's because it's pushing at one of your boundaries and it's an invitation to look at what is going on. So where do you go from there?
Where do I go from here? So when we were having this conversation initially, like it came out because of frustration. That was the underlying thing that prompted the whole conversation. And frustration as a state of being, right? Where I've noticed and recognized that it's a default pattern almost of mine to feel frustrated, in the state of frustration. And it's almost like compartmentalized for me, because I can have it like look at my work situation and feel a level of frustration and burnout when it comes to work. And when we talk about boundaries, it's like, I get the concept, but sometimes it's hard sometimes to be able to say, no, I'm not doing that, when it clearly is your job, right? Like, this is what I'm actually employed to be doing. So I have to do it. So there's almost like a limitation on how much of a boundary you can have. So how do you manage not getting burnt out when there's really no room to establish I'm not doing that anymore, but without losing your job, kind of thing. When it comes to personal stuff, I'm guilty as anybody to know when there should probably be a clearer boundary and be like loose within that, depending on who the person and situation is, right? So it's just constantly a checking in with myself. Like, if you're gonna do the shit that you're doing, you have to be happy to be doing it and not be annoyed or frustrated at anybody else if you're continuing to take on all that you're doing. But when it comes to work, I actually don't have the answer, because I don't know how you're supposed to manage that and not get burnt out in the process. Because that's where I'm at. It's like I'm at a state of burnout, and it's because I'm really overwhelmed and like burnt out at work, and then it just trickles into the rest of your life, because there's still other things that have to be done in life, but it seems to be there's less capacity to hold it all, and it's got to bleed out somewhere. So I don't know. So that's where the fuck this shit comes in, because it feels good to say it. It's like a little pressure release of fuck this, and then it's like, all right, but I still have to do it.
So it's a pressure release, but the accountability has to remain. So what I'm picking up is that it's time divided by number of tasks and responsibilities that lead us to stress. Jerry, Brett, any thoughts?
Yeah, this is a great discussion. I mean, in my life, I'm not heavily in the work world anymore, but the past many years I've been letting go, emptying out. And recently, the past year or so, I've really had to firm up some boundaries, which have taken a lot of skill. And that could be with family, with old friends. I used to say yes a lot more, and we were just having this discussion this morning, me and Erika, about how much I say no now to a lot of opportunities to do things. And they could even be, I mean, I used to do retreats on top of retreat on top of healing retreats, right? I would just go everywhere and I'm still getting invited to help and mentor and this and that, and I'm saying no. And then I get caught up and I watch my mind judging myself, like, what are you doing? Are you isolating? Are you, I feel like I'm doing something wrong because I'm not saying yes to all these opportunities to be around people. But I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I've got to embrace this process that I'm in. Even if I feel a little more alone, I'm very comfortable alone, but I've got to drop more into Jerry or some more of my shadow work to really feel into what's happening and not distract myself out of it by going to retreats or teaching and feeling like, well, that can become a distraction for me, like spiritual bypassing. So boundaries becomes a very healthy practice if we know what we're doing, and I'm still learning, and discrimination. Because I feel like, you talk about burnout, I mean, I feel like I burnt out from life in many ways, and I'm restructuring. But the more that I empty out, I can feel that burnout as I grieve and look at my life and everything that has come and gone and where it's going. Everything feels so fragile, right? So to even have these discussions, we were talking about this, is very hard to do with most people. They don't know how to really drop into this kind of discussion. And when I bring up how I'm feeling about watching my parents getting close and just friends around me, what life really is, how fragile it is, and how much I'm feeling it, I just notice how others kick out of that. And it can make people uncomfortable, even if I'm in a group and I don't feel like discussing this because I feel like I'm making everybody else comfortable, but I'm not good at small talk. I'm really not. I used to be really good at it, right? I was a salesman and all that, and I just don't have that in me anymore. I want to be real. So I want to feel this stuff. Because me and Brett were just saying, it's like the past 20 years I've been in my house. It's gone so fast. I don't know what happened. I don't even know what this house represents anymore. And it represented such a big identity when I moved in 20 years ago. And now it's like, well, who the hell am I? What am I doing with this room? Why am I doing? So, I'm just very selective on who I say yes to and who's in my life now because I'm so open and empathic to energy. So Brett and Erika, I say yes to often. I love being with them because they can do this kind of conversation at a deeper level. So I don't know if that answers. I don't know. Was there a question? I don't know.
No.
And that's how we roll. Perfect.
Absolutely perfect.
Okay.
And No, you make a really valid point because, matching energy is important. Making sure we say yes to the right things, but also no to the right things. And being flexible. You can say no and change your mind. Most people are quite open to that, but very few of us, if we have given a substantial yes to somebody, will actually go back and say, look, I am overstretched, I'm oversubscribed in work, in every, and just, it's one thing to feel burnt out about work, but to feel burnt out about life, that takes us into a different road completely. Brett, our quiet man.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Brett. No.
Somebody puts, expectations on you and they're unrealistic and you take them on without a boundary or giving them a heads up, that's going to take you right into that burnout. Right? So there's that expectation and it's unrealistic. They want, like, you're still working on one thing, like, oh, good, you're done with that. Jump on this now and let's get this done before the end of the day. And it's like, yeah, this is still going to take about an hour to wrap this up. Like, what are you talking about? We only got about an hour and a half left in the day and you want a whole nother section done? So it's without you being open and airing your voice and what's going on with the parts in the background, the things that go on in your head, and saying it in a polite way, because you just can't come out all the time and say, fuck this, fuck you, blah, 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 right? Because it won't come off good. So having the right words to express what's in your head, I think is key. And to just allow them to know that I appreciate your expectation and I would love to achieve that, but due to the time of the day, right, I'm going to get this done and maybe I can prep some stuff for tomorrow so that goes smoother and we'll get there tomorrow. And so that you don't have that overwhelmed feeling like building up because you're not going to get there and the end of the day's coming and then people are chasing it every single day. So it's not that I'm choosing to work slower. I can't go faster and actually give the quality job that's needed. So, where some people might take what I'm saying in the opposite direction and slow down and be like, yeah, no, we ain't because you get that as well. That people they'll never hit burnout because they got that pace that
they don't give a fuck.
Yeah. But, and the fact of the matter is that I do, but I can only give you the quality pace that I know. And if my quality pace isn't good enough for you, well, then you're not going to like the hack job that gets done. And I'm not going to like you telling me that you don't like my work. So this is where I am, and this is the quality. You're only getting quality and done the right way because it's not worth the conversation. It's not going to serve me if I contradict my quality and then you come back and talk about it to me. Well, yeah, that's my fault. So there's my boundaries, compromising my own integrity and quality of work, right? And I want to hold on to that and make sure that stays strong, right? I like to do a job, do it once, and not have to go back to it. Right? If I'm going back to something, I'm like, son of a, I should have bought that. I knew that. I probably had a gut feeling that was like, whoa, stop, don't do that. And then you might get down the road a little bit and be like, all right, you know what? We do have to go back to that. I can't keep moving because it's going to affect this all the way down. And then you go back to it. So there's that whole headpiece that I'm very aware of that goes on, and trying to turn the volume up on that headpiece that plays in the background, the intuition piece. That's trying to give you a heads up as to where you're going and what's going on. And, you're going to lead to burnout. Like, it's probably back there like, hey, yeah, you got to say something. When you're ignoring the intuition, they're like, I tried telling them, all right, go ahead. And then burnout comes in. It's like, I'll take care of this. It's sort of like that movie, right? That they have out. What is that?
Inside Out.
Inside Out. Yeah, and now that burnout piece comes in like, I'll take care of this. We'll shut them right down and give you different feelings. And then the feelings are getting involved. And those two will be acting out together within you, right? And then, so it's a whole like parts kind of thing that plays into it all. That's really cool. And I'm aware of.
You tapped into something really important there, but and I think this is the main issue with burnout, and that's time. Would we ever burn out with any task if we would have the time to actually do so, especially in work? But the problem is in work, we usually work towards deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the issue. And this is where the pressure and the stress comes from. My last job where I was employed was a highly pressurized job because it was in tourism. And it didn't matter if it was a individual person going on a holiday or we did sports. So we had to bring entire fans and the teams to the matches. You had to have 2,000 people in their seats in the stadium on Saturday at 4:00. And it had to be done. And if it meant to stay until 10 in the night to get the flight manifests out to the airlines, it had to be done. There was no option to move the work because it was real deadlines. There was no other option. And when I was younger, I was able to handle that, with all the extra pressure. And it came to a point where I just said, I can't do it anymore. I just cannot work at this pace anymore. And the only way to solve the problem would have been to get more staff, to take the pressure off of every individual staff member, to have more people do the work. But because the company, in fairness now to them, was a lovely company, they didn't had really the options to hire more staff, especially because our work was very seasonal. So in summer, when there was no sports events, we wouldn't have needed all that staff, right? So the only way for me at the time, my only solution to save myself and my health was actually leaving that job.
Mm.
And I literally took the consequence because it was either me getting a heart attack or have complete burnout. And I had the signs of early burnout. I said, I either leave and you know what the funny bit was? The last really major hectic season with all the deadlines, because I knew I was leaving in September and this was spring. Guess what, Erika? Because I knew I was leaving, it was a bit of, fuck this,
Fuck
it's
it.
only one season more and then I'm done. And suddenly the overwhelm, the burnout was much, I did the same work at the same pace, but mentally, because I knew I was leaving in September, it was the last time I was going through that. Suddenly it was, okay.
So, what I'm hearing based on what everybody has said so far, but the way Brett was describing it is, so burnout. And if we can spend a minute here actually talking about what burnout actually looks like, right? I think people who are listening might want to know what that is. If somebody's sitting there trying to decide if they're actually, in fact, experiencing burnout, but it's just, it can be met by it's just a series of one stressful day after the next with no reprieve is what it feels like to me, right? So what are the signs of burnout? And is burnout purely, like, is it a physical thing? Is it psychological? Is it emotional? Is it all three? What is it? Like, what is it actually? And what are the signs of burnout? I'm asking for a friend just to see if I check off the boxes.
People often think that they've got other symptoms of other conditions when actually realistically it's burnout. So extreme fatigue, brain fog, IBS symptoms, inflammation in the body, anything really that comes from your autonomic nervous system being permanently activated into a kind of fight, flight, freeze, flop. So autoimmune conditions, you might find that you constantly are getting minor illnesses, bugs, etc. All of this is symptomatic of burnout. And then you've got purely kind of psychological aspects like overcognition. So your sleep is affected because all you're thinking about is the workload for the next day, the next week, the next month. Scattered thinking because your mind is hopping from one subject to another subject. And I mean, the list goes on, and it fits multiple other things. And as we've talked about before, if you take a lot of this stuff to the doctor, they're just going to give you a big pharma ching ching kind of prescription. So recognizing it and knowing that many of these things are just your body screaming for you to slow down and take notice, like Gaby said. And Brett, if you don't listen, if you're not listening to the whisper, the body will eventually shout. And if you don't hear the shout, then all the stops come out, the rungs of the ladder collapse and you just smash to the ground. So, Erika, how many of those do you think?
So hang out, all of them. But hold on a minute, because I want to tie this back to what Jerry said, something about the burnout of life, right? Which is a whole nother, like, it's sort of hanging here because we should really bite our teeth into that eventually. But to connect it to this, so we have the burnout that is experienced in high pressure jobs, which is really, I think, where most people connect burnout with, right? It's usually with work, because when you connect burnout to everyday life, in my lens, that is a different category of grief for whatever it is, right? The burnout of life, because things are heavy, things are changing. That's how you feel it. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, wait a minute. So, because all of those symptoms you just described are something that you could say for someone who's also going through grief for whatever reason, right? If they lose a person, all of those same things are what a person could experience. So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, so does all burnout has a level of grief, right? Like all grief has burnout with it. How do they interchange here? And how do you differentiate between the two? And more importantly, what is the alternative to the high cost narcotic medication of treating burnout? Like, short of saying it's fuck this shit o'clock and throwing your papers up in the air and walking out of your job, or making a decision to leave a job maybe before you're actually comfortably to do so, right? In a state of desperation, as opposed to making a good decision. How do you navigate through burnout? Like, how do you forcibly put the brakes, or like navigate it? Really, what are the keys to navigating burnout without having to take drastic measures, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, there's loads of there's loads of questions in there. First of all, I think what Cher was talking about, being tired with life, is a completely second discussion. And I'm sure a lot of grief comes in there. Now, when I didn't even know I was experiencing burnout. That's like what Brett says. If you're not even aware of what's going on and you don't see the signs. And I remember distinctly one Christmas, I was so tired. I was supposed to go shopping for Christmas presents, and I went into shops, got a few things. I came out, and my body was suddenly physically so tired that my body refused to walk. It literally just refused to walk. All I wanted to do, and I didn't do it, but what I really wanted to do is just go down, sit on the road right there, middle of Dublin, and cry. That's where I was at. It was a real physical reaction, and I don't think it wasn't grief. It was really poor physical exhaustion, where the body said, I had enough. I just had enough. Now, I didn't leave the job for another 6 years after that. But what I did, I cut down everything else in my life which wasn't related to work, because work took on more and more pressure. So I cut down hobbies, meeting for everything I liked. I cut down on. Then came the resentment a few years later, because now it was just work left in life. Everything I loved to do was cut out, right? So the resentment came. Then the grief came from my old life. So it was actually a process. And thankfully, I'm rational enough, and it didn't just leave job one day to the next. I prepared for it over a year to actually leave the job. So I had my ducks all in a row. But as I said, I knew I was going September. I had it planned proper. So I didn't just run into my boss one day full of emotions, shouting, "I had enough, I'm out of here." So I didn't do that. So I think for me, the first step is recognizing the symptoms, recognizing what's going on in work, seeing what do I have in my control? How can I control myself? How can I control the environment out around me? If this is long term not an option, just prepare for a different life. And it may take
So
2 years.
what if the part that I want to highlight is when you knew you were on your way out and you were able to say fuck it and everything came down. How do we go to that place without having the exit strategy?
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that in our everyday, that we can bring down all those feelings inside and ease all the different emotions and whatever's going on internally and externally, and bring it down to that same spot and not have to leave that job?
I think it was distance. I didn't personalize everything anymore. Because I was leaving, I had the possibility to say, okay, I think well, if you think we do it that way, and you're telling me to do it this way, we do it your way. If it goes belly up, I don't care. I'm gone in September. Now, it sounds horrible, but it's not that I don't care about the company. I actually still care about them because I have good friends there, and they were lovely, lovely bosses, and they were really nice. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't lose a bad word about them. It was the nature of work, but I think the difference was that I didn't take everything and anything personal anymore. Really
That's
too
the
hard.
point.
Personalize it completely. I
Yeah.
learned with that. I'm going in September. Hold on. Healthy distance. A healthy distance and boundaries. That's really what it was.
So if we're able to do that where we are, we won't have to leave those situations, right? So that's the win. How do we find the ability to say those things that you said, right? Like, hey, you want to do it that way, that's fine. Like having that way of being be okay and being heard and still producing, because you were still producing, but you were actually voicing what was going on inside. But you didn't care anymore, because what are you gonna do? Fire me? I'm already leaving in September. If this goes belly up, it's on you. Right? So, but why not while you're still there? Because you're still producing and you're still doing it. Go ahead.
Because you brought the integrity issue for you in when you were speaking about work earlier. How are you going to do that? Because Gaby and I, we're kind of out. We're masters and mistresses of our own time. Jerry's already told us yeah. But Brett, Erika, you both are in the full everything is about productivity world of America. You two, out of the conversationalists, are the ones most affected by finding a way to manage doing what you've just asked. So how?
And that's why I ask, because that's where I am, right? So I'll produce. And when they say things now, I'm like, well, I might be able to get prepared for tomorrow. Like, that's what I wind up saying. But look, I'm not going to mislead you. Unless there's overtime, I'm not getting to it, right? Because there's a certain amount of the day that we can work. And if I'm not going to come here on my own time, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? And what's the reward for doing an outrageous amount of work? More work. right? So I don't mind working and working hard, right? But I'm not going to compromise my integrity and my quality to get more work to compromise my integrity and my quality, right? Because then I'm going to be left with my whole inside screaming, everybody pissed off inside. Everybody outside might be smiling that everything's getting done faster, right? And then upset that it wasn't done right, possibly, right? But I'm more worried about the inside. Like, there's a balance that I'm looking to keep. And that's why I was asking Gaby, because that's what I ask myself. Like, how am I going to balance this? How am I going to meet the pace and know that some people are just always going to want more, 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 more. And the reality is, I want more too, but I ain't getting it. So it's good to want more, but I'm not compromising what I offer and who I am. And that's the truth. And I think there's something important about that, in having somebody who's going to do that, because the quality of your work is going to be good, and you can hang your name on what's being done and not have to second guess what was done. It could be, oh, so-and-so was there, or Brett was there. I'm not worried about that. No, I'm going to say that was installed right and something else went wrong because Brett was there, right? Or anybody else that has that work mentality in that way, right? When somebody likes to do things right and once, then, and so for myself, those are the things that I ask myself. And that's where I am these days, trying to balance it, because I give a lot to work and I'll run around. And then when I come home, I'm shot because I ran around. So there's still a balance for me that I'm looking for. So, and that might just be because we've had overtime lately and it's nonstop. And, sometimes I don't need a lunch, and we'll take lunches at different times. And I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of, I don't need to eat right now. I'm not hungry, and I kind of want to get this done. And guys like me, you have to take a lunch. It's state law. And I'm like, all right, let me go get a drink of water. Let me sit down for a little bit, and then, I can make a choice to get up. I'm like, all right, as long as you heard that you have to take a lunch. So, and I don't know, I kind of move it like that. So for me, I don't know, Erika's in the work world still, and it sounds like, that's the only other person. Everybody else kind of bailed on the work world.
Yeah. The rest of the people here are like,
you.
They're slackers. Like, whatever. They do whatever, man.
We just all said, fuck it. I know, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I recognise really clearly from several times where I had handed in my notice and was changing, sometimes even professions, let alone careers, that I did get that to the extent that I actually thought about staying in the job, because I was like, yeah, actually, this is not so bad. But I knew the moment I said, no, you know what, I'm and it is the kind of professional pride and stuff. But how many people do work through their lunch? And it's almost celebrated. People have working breakfast, working lunches, they go out for networking dinners. Fuck this, fuck that, fuck you working over breakfast. No, breakfast is breakfast. It doesn't come with a side helping of paperwork. But Erika, you get up at 4:00 in the morning to fit in your day. I mean, there is only one 4:00 in my day. And frankly, I'm not even bothered if I miss that one.
So I'm over here, like, I don't even know how to speak on this topic, because we had this discussion yesterday about, okay, but we're recognizing that I am probably in the firmly stated in the burnout box, right? Like, that I have experienced burnout. I'm currently, like, I operate in burnout. So I said, what is the word? Like, and you had a word for it, or you said something about those of us who are in burnout but continue to do the things and just show up. And and meet the deadlines and the demands and are still doing all of that in a way that it's like autopilot almost.
Yeah,
And I can't remember, you called it something. Yeah.
The ragged edge of burnout, because, it's not like a clean slice through a piece of paper where you see a boundary and you think, okay, that is the edge of the burnout box. It will look different on different days because of all those other symptoms and, feelings that come with it. You can be pushing harder through and into burnout just by trying to achieve the basics. So, there is no clearly defined that's burnout. It is a ragged edge. And if you're close to it and you're hopping from one side to the other, as you are, and I think you probably spend more more time in the edges that are actually burning out from underneath you, it worries me. You worry me, not as a person, but we know that when you are full of stress and cortisol, heart damage is higher. The effect on your cardiovascular system, other than your heart, is higher. Just the metabolic age increases because we all know in this room that you don't sleep enough, and we've talked about menopause. Postmenopausal women need more sleep. Women, this startling fact, women need more sleep than men, but that's one of those unspoken burdens that you don't get because it's either the baby or doing the house, as well as I'm going to come out and say it, the biggest joke that has ever been played on womankind is feminism, giving you the right to go to work to be taxed, because hang on a minute, we're only taxing 50% of the working population. In that respect, feminism is a joke. What right did it give you? The right to go and try and work your arse off to get a career that is equally as unfulfilling as those that a lot of men have chased and pursued and then found it's left them unfulfilled, with all of the other stuff that you still do. That's not feminism to me. That is just overburdening at least 50% of the rest of the population.
No, it's really important, because what we're missing here for that demographic that we speak to, the other half, the female side that experiences not only professional burnout, there is a level of burnout that is not seen, that is not spoken about. It's that emotional mental load that is carried that nobody else sees, but it's there. And it's, how do you navigate all of that? It's like, it's got to come out somewhere. So when we're having this talk, like when I'm at work, I am not shy about, are you fucking kidding me? Is what you hear coming out of my little cubby at work. Like my desk is, that's the pressure valve. So it's not directed towards anyone. Like I would never say that to somebody's face in my office, but to the emails that are coming in, to the shit that I'm dealing with. It's a lot of that. And what it feels like for me is that I need, and there's an imaginary giant pause button that it's like, I want to slap, so that everything needs to stop. Like the emails need to stop. The people, the demands need to stop coming, so that I need a minute to catch my breath so I can focus on actually what is the priority, because I only have a finite amount of energy that I can put. So I have to gather my resources and focus intently on where it needs to go. And just the act of focusing takes so much energy to try to discern what's most important here that I need to take care of when you have demands coming from all over the place. And then when you go into home and personal life, and there's the pressure of keeping other humans alive and animals alive, and like this it's like, where's the pause button? Because everything needs to stop. Like if I had a superpower, it would be to pause people so that I could do stuff and then be able to like be ready for more of what's coming. So, I obviously don't have this mastered. All I know is that I try to breathe as much as possible and keep reminding myself that I am one person and I'm doing what I can and staying true to my work ethic and the way that I want to show up in my life always. Like, I'm going to do the best that I can, knowing that that's pretty fucking good. And so if I can tap into it, I'm going to do what I can. And the rest is not for me. And if somebody has a problem with it, they can do it because I can't get to it. And that's the way it has to be. Otherwise, I don't know what the answer is. But yeah, we talk about tangoing with grief, like the intricate dance that we have with these kind of emotional things. I find it to be the same thing. It's like this dance that I have to do with going over the edge of quitting entirely everything, like, fuck it, I'm done. And like walking off into the sunset with my little hobo bag over my shoulder, or remaining present in my life, staying true to my own work ethic and the way that I want to show up and breathing so that it can all get done and I don't come out sideways to somebody, which happens a lot because irritability is like leads to show when you're in a huge amount of burnout. And it's not something that it's not congruent with who you are really because it's taken over. So yeah, it's not a fun place to be. Definitely not. And I'm sure I'm not alone. There are plenty of people who are listening to us with our, 2 listeners that we have. I'm sure both of them experience burnout in some way.
Well, I actually had an email from one saying that we're talking too much and that we should give them a break. So they've got time to catch up with the other episodes. So we're only having...
Are you kidding me?
Of course I'm kidding you. Only 50% of our listeners listen at any one time. But let us take an imaginary pause, and without breaking the flow of the conversation, we'll be back with our 2 listeners in a moment